afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our program. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm your host, Jason Seymour. I'm the spokesperson for the U.S. mission to ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Again, thank you for joining us today. Today, we have a very special program for you. We are going to be talking about some very sensitive topics because June in the United States is considered what we call Pride Month. And this is a month when we give a special focus to communities that are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, intersex, and queer. And so just before we get started and before I introduce our wonderful guest who's waiting, I thought that it would be a good idea just to go over these terms. Now, many of you who follow these issues are very familiar with these words, but not everyone is. Some people are just learning about these concepts for the first time. So there are individuals who are biologically male or female. That means that they have secondary sex characteristics associated with those sexes, genitalia, and other biological features, but they have an attraction to individuals who have the same biological sex. And within that definition, we have lesbians, we have gays, and we have bisexuals. Then there are individuals who we call intersex. And those are people who show secondary sex characteristics, sometimes primary sex characteristics, I should say, but they show biological features of both sexes. So those individuals are called intersex. Then we have another category, and this is a very complex category, and those are individuals who feel that we should view men and women outside of the limitations of biological sex. So these are individuals who say that we should look at men and women in terms of gender, in terms of personalities, behaviors, perceptions within one's mind, within oneself. So this is a very complex category. And within this category, we refer to people as trans, transsexuals, transgender, and sometimes queer. And the definitions of these terms are constantly changing. People have lots of debates over what their preferred terms are, what the definition should be. I'm sure that there are many, many discussions going on about these terms all over Southeast Asia. And that is when I'm going to bring in our guest, who is from Cambodia, who loves these kinds of discussions and inspires people to talk about these matters, to ask questions. So before I introduce him, let me just say quickly, this is a conversation, this is a discussion, this is a safe moment for anyone listening in, anyone in the audience to share questions with us, and we will discuss them together. Okay, I hope that was helpful and interesting to all of you in the audience. Let's bring in Nayrong Tim. Welcome to the program.
Hello everyone. Hello, Jason. I'm so excited to be here.
And I'm excited to have you. So how did I do with my definitions?
It's great. It's all well descriptive, and especially I like the way you explain about like in terms of LGBT community, it have so many terms, and some terms mean overlapping. So it more based on the preference and the real situation of that country or of that area.
Sure, and there are cultural elements as well. As people explore sexual orientation and gender identity and what these terms mean, there are different variations from culture to culture and how people perceive each other and how they behave. So let's talk a little bit about Cambodia, which is where you are from. So what is the daily reality now for people who consider themselves to be part of the LGBTIQ plus community?
Okay, so in Cambodia context, we are fortunate that being LGBTQ is illegal in Cambodia, that you can have a right to be an LGBTQ as long as you want to. But when it comes to the legislation about LGBT rights have not yet been enacted by the government. So, for example, just like if same-sex couple, like gay couple, they want to have a marriage, you still can have a marriage, you still can celebrate your own event within your family, but the local authority doesn't recognize or involve about your marriage. You also cannot have the adoption for gay couple as well. And this is another part. This is on a separate note for the society itself. I can say the behavior of the society treating LGBT is a little bit kind of like not really open at all, but it based on the area. Like maybe in Phnom Penh city, in the capital city, people have access more to like what is LGBT, have access to the information about human rights, so that they can be aware more of LGBT, of being LGBT. But if you look at the countryside or at the parliament, people might have a limited access to the information about LGBT or the story of LGBT, about the human rights. So they might be a little bit sensitive and discriminate against LGBT people. So again, in Cambodia, you can fully being LGBT, but you have to bear in mind that you need to accept the critic. You need to be willing to accept the critic from your surrounding. It can be your parent, your colleague, your friend, or your community, kind of stuff like that.
Let's unpack that a little bit. So I'm glad to hear. So if someone is discovered to be gay, then he won't be put in jail for that in Cambodia. But let's say that a lesbian is teaching in a school. She has a job as a school teacher, and the principal finds out that one of his teachers is a lesbian. Can they fire her? Does she have any protections?
I really have no idea regarding to the regulation protect on her if they found out that person is a lesbian. But I could say in another aspect that if you come out as a lesbian or gay, or come out as an LGBT, you might be less welcome to less welcome to offer a job, mostly at a private company or some institution in Cambodia that, yes, they're not really opening the application for LGBTQ community. So it is kind of like a challenge for the LGBTQ community to sustain their economic, to sustain themselves, to fully develop themselves.
If a teenager comes out to his or her family members, his or her parents, and says, I am a member of the LGBTIQ community, do the parents accept this? Do they kick them out of their home? What kind of reactions do you see as you interact with members of the community?
There's many cases. Some LGBT people that they are fortunate enough that they born in a family that are fully educated, that are well educated, so that they can understand if their son or daughter being LGBT is okay. We all are human. But there's also a case that when you come out as a gay or LGBT, your parent more or less they are disappointed to you because they don't want their kid to be to be defined as an LGBT people, because LGBT people in Cambodia is marginalized, is a little bit vulnerable when it comes to work, when it comes to society reputation kind of stuff like that. And regarding to your question, there's a case that the family kicked their kid out of the house and kind of like not to recognize them as their kid anymore, just because they come out as themselves. And according to one of my interview in Hong province, like I interviewed like the son, he is gay, and the mother is there, and the son is kind of like accept himself that he's gay, kind of stuff like that. He's kind of like got discriminated against by the people in his community, kind of stuff like that. But his mother kind of like still uh, doesn't accept he is gay, because his mother said that my son is not gay because he's born with the male biological sex, so he's not gay. So we kind of like see the difference, like in some at some part of Cambodia, if the person have enough information about LGBTQ or have an educated about LGBTQ, that would be fine. But at some point, it still have a limited access of the information and education about LGBTQ. So that can be a problem for LGBTQ community, that people still ignore the existence of being LGBTQ.
I'm really glad that you said that, and that is why I went into some detail defining some of the terms, although very briefly. It's much longer conversation than that, but there is often an assumption that everyone knows about LGBTIQ individuals and what it means to be part of the community, and that is not always the case. Some people are very unaware of these issues, or maybe they've only heard a couple things and they're all negative. So having dialogue and conversation is crucial and important. So please tell our audience a little bit about your group, your organization, which is called Buzztalk Cambodia. So please tell us how you try to address this issue of education and having more dialogue and more conversation.
Okay, so before I'm telling everyone about what is Buzztalk Cambodia, I want to tell everyone that we believe in the power of discussion, because whenever it comes to discussion, no matter your partner, your discussion partner, your group disagree with you, but at least they think about the topic that you want to discuss with them. And so Talk Cambodia is a youth dialogue platform which aims to break the stigma on LGBT plus in Cambodia through constructive dialogue and storytelling. So we are trying to advocate for fair and equal treatment. We advocate for a better discussion, for this constructive discussion about being LGBT community. So we have designed like a three main components. So the first component is that we have designed a digital campaign that focusing on raising awareness about LGBT community, like including the content that related to terminology, that related to like an appropriate word that we should use, that young people must be aware when it comes to communicate with LGBT people, because they also human, so they also want an appropriate treatment. And the second component of Buzztalk Cambodia is to train young people about LGBT community, what is LGBT community, and along with the basic journalism skills, so that they can write about the story of LGBT community, to advocate among the community, among their peers, among their family, among their colleagues. And the last component is the community science visit. we designed the community site visit because we want to bring young people that we have been trained to the community site to have a peaceful, to have an actual conversation with the LGBT community because just like I said, some people might be have a negative perspective against LGBT people. Just say that when people think that might think that LGBT people is an abnormal person. So, but they never have a chance to have, or they never try to have a conversation with LGBT people. Like so. That is why we come up with a community site visit just to make sure that our young people be able to have a conversation and discussion with LGBT people so that they can rely on who are they, who is the actual LGBT people and what did they face, like the trouble they face, the concern of LGBT people, and the young people will bring all the concern and will further advocate for inclusive society.
Made so many wonderful points, but I go back to one of the statements you said earlier. You said we are all humans, and one of the beauty of having dialogue with people with whom you're not familiar is you start to see this person as a complex person. You have some things in common, you disagree on other things, you make friends, and then suddenly the LGBTIQ concepts, they don't seem quite so alien, so disquieting. So having this space where people can have this dialogue is so important. So what kind of conversations do people engage in when they are attending events that you host? What are some of the subtopics?
So some of the topic that we are discussed during our group discussion at the community site visit, kind of like we're more talking on like as an LGBTQ, what is this, what is the struggle that they face like in the community. Another topic we're also talking about the story, the personal story of themselves, like being an LGBTQ, what do they face and how did they overcome and how did they overcome it? How did they challenge it with their family, within their family and community, kind of stuff like that. We also have another topic about like story writing, interviewing between our participant and the LGBT people individual. So after the discussion, after the group discussion, about people sharing about their opinion, the story, so that we have another session that our participant can be sit down one-on-one, face-to-face with LGBT individual to write the story for further publication on our Buzztalk website.
Now, when you were going through the process of setting up Buzztalk, you must have had some challenges finding individuals who would give you a space to rent or conduct your events. So for people who might want to start something similar in their communities, what tips do you have?
I think the most important thing when it comes to community project is partnership. Because we cannot do everything by our own. I mean, we are capable to do it by our own, but it would take a lot of time and effort and also cannot be reaching out in a larger scale. But when it comes for Talk Cambodia, we build a partnership with the local NGO at our targeted province that we want to have a visit. Like for example, in Siem Province, we build a partnership with an NGO, a local NGO there called A Place to Be Yourself. So an NGO there that they are working, that they are having the same mission, that are working to empower and spread awareness about being LGBTQ. So they agree to help us. So they agree to help us to gather LGBT people and the community for the discussion. They prepare the space for our discussion. And this is just also a trick for everyone that you wish to work with LGBT community in the future. We cannot go straight and talk to the LGBT people because they're not going to tell them that they're not going to tell us that they are LGBT community, they are LGBT person. Because to them we are just a stranger. So this is a trick so that we have to build a partnership, a local partnership that have a close relationship with the LGBT community at the targeted province that we want to visit, so that they can go and talk to the LGBT community, and the LGBT community can agree and come to join your discussion, your space. Because we all have to make sure that it is a safe space for them. And it is a little bit sensitive because when it comes to LGBT topic and you say that, oh, I want to interview you, kind of stuff like that, I want to bring the story out, but it kind of like a little bit sensitive and uncomfortable when we never know each other before, and then you go straight and talk to them that you want the story, and they won't tell you the truth. But the best approach is to build a partnership with the local NGO that they have a close relationship with LGBT community, so that you can not just only having a fruitful discussion with them, but also to have their authentic story to public in your website.
It's definitely a sensitive topic, but it is important to create that safe space, but also push a little bit and create that environment and do what you can to make it happen. So don't take no for an answer. This is an important cause. So push and turn it into a reality, such as you have, because you really wanted this to happen. And you kept having that dialogue and conversation until you found a partner who would work with you. So I want to segue because we received a question from our audience, and I'm not surprised we received a question on this topic because there has been a lot of news recently about a lifter, a power lifter who has been selected to participate in the Olympics and represent New Zealand. And this is a trans individual who has raised a lot of questions about the role of transgender women in women's sports competitions. And I know that you're not only passionate about LGBTIQ issues, you're also passionate about women's rights and women's empowerments. So do you have a perspective on this matter that you would like to share with the audience?
Okay, I think everyone deserves to be empowered no matter who they are, whether they are gay, lesbian, or transgender, or women. That everyone deserves to be fully developed themselves. And to me, myself, like we in Cambodia, I would say in Cambodia we live in a history that women empowerment movement or women movement is very popular in the current context. That everyone talking about women empowerment. We should give women a space to do the same thing as men. Women is also capable to do the same thing, and like this good lesson learned. I mean the advocacy, the good lesson learned that we advocate for women. That is all something that we can use to advocate for LGBT community individuals as well.
Well, it's a conversation that will continue. There are a lot of opinions on every side, a lot of complexities. So I'm sure this will continue to be explored. I'm also wondering, since we brought up specifically the issue of trans, has there been what has been the response in Cambodia to people who we would describe as trans or genderqueer, or the many different terms that are being used to describe gender? Some communities, some cultures have had have had people who would be described that way for centuries. Is this something new in Cambodia, or has trans individuals been part of the Cambodian culture for a long time?
I think like in Cambodia history we have it, like being gay or being transgender, but still in Cambodia context it is kind of like a lack of recognition from the society. So I would say being transgender or being trans is kind of like less fortunate for now. Because you might be not really prioritized at all in term of kind of like what should I say? You are not really prioritized in terms of recognition, in terms of family acceptance, in terms of society acceptance, in terms of job, in terms of working environment, in terms of treatment from your surrounding. It's kind of like a little bit less fortunate for trans people in Cambodia in current context, I would say.
You know, you have really put yourself out there trying to improve the daily life for Cambodian members of the LGBTIQ community. What kind of response have you received as you have put yourself out there fighting for these issues?
I think we don't receive any negative response at all. No. Because, yeah, I mean, most of the comments are like kind of like we used to it. In Cambodia context, it's like when you want to work on LGBTQ people, you have to keep in mind that you might receive a negative perspective or a negative response to your social media content, to your Facebook, kind of stuff like that. People gonna comment like, "Oh, I don't support LGBT community. They are abnormal. We should not talking about them. Like supporting LGBTQ will be discourse of human resource or development kind of stuff like that." But to me myself, I'm happy when people are responding this way. Because when they're responding this way to us, meaning that our content is reached out to them. And they are our target audience because we want them to hear the story of LGBT community, to know that what is LGBT, what is the story behind them, why LGBTQ community kind of stuff like that. So when they're responding, even it is in a negative way, but they have think, oh, it should or should not. So yes, we receive that kind of responding, but another part, we also receive a lot of positive comment from the LGBT community themselves, but kind of like they're not come up yet. They are in the closet, and kind of like they teaching us or they message us that they feel comfortable, they feel warm, they wish they could come out one day to their family and their surrounding kind of stuff like that, and that is something really motivating us to work on raising a greater awareness about being LGBTQ in Cambodia.
You are a proud advocate for the LGBTIQ community and their rights, and you're also a proud member of the Young Southeast Asian Leaders Initiative, which is a US government program for young people between the ages of 18 to 35. So if you're not a member, please join us. But you were sent on a special program to the United States in 2018. Could you tell our audience a little bit about that program?
Okay, I was selected to join the YSEAN academic fellowship to the United States, and my whole institution was at Nebraska Omaha. So during my time there, since I took civic engagement, so during my time there, we have learned a lot. We learned a lot about the community movement, the decision during in the United States. The sensitive topic in the United States can be the black and white community. How can the government or the people stay harmonized between the black and white community? We also got to learn how related to women empowerment kind of stuff like that, and we have an opportunity to to the government to see the government city hall or the government council, like to learn about their decentralized decision. Throughout the fellowship program, it have enlightened me to see a lot of different perspectives regarding gender, race, gender identity, diversity, kind of stuff like that. And I think the big picture and the example of United States want me to bring something back to my community that I want everyone to be included in decision making, no matter who they are, whether they are gay, lesbian, women, and especially the most minority group. We have to empower them in order them to voice out their concern. Yes, and this is an experience from my fellowship program in the United States.
I'm jealous. I want to go on all those training opportunities. So what can you tell our audience about Nebraska? Did you enjoy Omaha?
Yes, I enjoy Omaha. I think in Omaha is a city, I would say Omaha, people there, it kind of like really open-minded and beautiful heart, because American people have a beautiful culture. Oh no, Omaha have a beautiful culture that no matter who you are, where you're from, when you walk in the morning and then they see you and they will just say, hi, how are you? What is your day? And this kind of like of the simple greeting, it kind of like really connected you as a person from a different country to them as an American in Omaha, and like you kind of like feel very connected between you and the community itself. And another thing that I like about Omaha is about like the privilege, because during my time there, there's a lot of activity. It's not just only about the training. It's not just about the study tour to the government, but also about voluntary work. So those kind of like small activity really inspire me. That inspire me that we should do more because we have the privilege to do it. Just like like everyone know that America like they have a lot of resources, like in terms of human resource, economic kind of stuff like that. But they still do a little thing in order to contribute to the community. And something like me as a young leader from Cambodia that should learn from that small activity that even if we have the privilege, we have enough, but we still do more to support our community, to support those who are in need, to support the marginalized group that they cannot wait for themselves.
Well, Nebraskans will be very happy to hear that because you spoke so well of them and your experience there. So do you have a US role model, a celebrity or an author or politician or someone you admire?
I have Michelle Obama. I really want her. Yeah, Michelle Obama. Because as you said that I'm also passionate and gender equality. I'm feminist. I'm also advocate, not just only advocate for LGBT community, but I also advocate for women empowerment and Michelle Obama. So whenever I feel down or less motivated, and I listen to her speech, it kind of like I don't know, but it is a spirit inside that kind of like motivate me to do something, to keep chasing my dream, to do more for my community. So she is the superwoman that I wish that in Cambodia, especially women from the community of Cambodia can be or learn from Michelle Obama.
Hmm.
Like
Fantastic.
be a woman leader to inspire other women.
We'll be very pleased to know that she has inspired so many Southeast Asians. So last question for you. What is something about Cambodia that you would like other Southeast Asians and Americans to know?
I think something that I would like average Southeast Asian friends to know about Cambodia is that Cambodia is a small country, but we have a big heart. We have a beautiful culture in terms of we have a beautiful culture in terms of accepting, in terms of being friendly to everyone out there, like being friendly to stranger, like we have a big heart of kindness to support one another during the hard time, and we have a culture of sharing to each other.
I love that. Thank you so much. Well, you certainly have a big heart, and I applaud you for having so many big ideas and working hard to make those ideas into a reality and really have an impact on Cambodia, Southeast Asia, the world, and to try to make this world a place where we talk to each other more and we have dialogue and we get to know one another and we are inspired to have new thoughts and be more caring and more kind and more loving to one another. So thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you to our audience. Thanks so much for joining us. I'll say goodbye for now and until the next time. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Jason.